But something interesting happened in 1978. My mother, who was working at a mathematician, by the way, here's some early pictures. My mother gets this very interesting note on a newspaper clipping. And the newspaper clipping, it says, Mina, I thought you would be interested. My mom's name was Meenakshi. And it's a New York University invites high school students. And what this article was, a friend of my mother's in New York had seen this article in the local newspaper that a professor at New York University was going to invite 40 students. This is in 1978, okay? When computers would fill all of, my entire home, one computer, okay? And it had 100,000 times less power than this computer, okay? On your iPhone. And he was going to invite students. His name was Henry Mullish. And he was going to invite, he was a professor. He had a vision, though. He had a vision. He realized that the future was going to be software engineering. People would be one day writing software programs on these things called computers. And you would need a new profession called software engineering, computer programmers. There weren't that many around. In those days, who used computers? Who used computers were old white men with lab coats working as physicists, typically in universities. And they would have to write code to program these computers, and very, very complicated code. But Professor Mullish wanted to educate the next generation of computer programmers. So he invited 40 students to participate. Now, it was a very competitive process. Out of the entire United States, 40 students were going to get selected. And your age had to be minimum 16 years old, right? I was 14 at the time, but anyway, people asked me to apply for it. And anyway, I was one of the 40 students, fortunately, to get accepted. Now, if you've been so New York is a very big city here. New Jersey is a very small town. So in order to go from New Jersey to New York, you need to catch a train, okay? And the train went from Newark, which was a very crime-ridden place. But my mom would drive me in there at 6 a.m. and I would take the train to Newark, okay? And, there's actually the trains, you get to go from New York and I'd go to NYU, okay? And why do I share that? The reason is, in the United States now, parents are afraid to even let their kids outside, okay? So I would take literally an hour train ride into New York City alone. And you would literally see crime and people try to sell you drugs. This is in the heart of Washington Square. And then I would go at 8 a.m. You get there at 7, 8 a.m. The lecture hall was taught by the best professors at the time, right? And graduate students at NYU. And it was the Corinth Institute of Mathematical Sciences in these lecture halls. And I graduated number 1 out of those 40 kids. All right. And that was on August 11th, 1978. So I finished that very intensive. And to tell you how intensive this was, it was basically 7 or 8 different engineering programs that they used to teach at the graduate school, taught in this immersion for almost like a Navy SEAL type program. Graduated number 1 in that. And then now I have to go back to high school, because remember, I'm still in high school. And something interesting happens. One of the high school teachers, very nice woman, she just passed away recently. Her name was Stella Alexiak. She said, wow, this kid is really smart. He doesn't have any more mathematics courses. We need to motivate him and support him in independent study. I had made connections with a professor who was in Newark, New Jersey, Newark, again, which is another very, very poor city in the United States. But in Newark, New Jersey, was a small medical college. And this guy, Dr. Michelson, worked in that medical college. And Dr. Michelson invited me to become part of their staff, because he saw I had passed this course, I had got number 1, and I was given the opportunity to become a research fellow at what is now known as Rutgers Medical School. So here's the medical school, and it's in the heart of Newark, New Jersey. And I get to become a research fellow, student research fellow, actually a research fellow. Now, the agreement was that I would be treated as an equal, but who were everyone around me was either 30, 40, 50 years older than me. People were 60 years old, scientists, 50 years old, 40. So I was a 14-year-old kid. So as a 14-year-old kid, they accepted me. There was no caste system in that environment. It was based on meritocracy. They gave me a desk. They gave me access to the computers. And I was given the opportunity initially. This was a medical school. Remember, I had a deep interest in medicine and obviously systems. And I was given the opportunity to do medical research. There's a very interesting disease called SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome, where babies die in their sleep suddenly. And so this hospital had some of the best data on babies and their sleep patterns. And what you call today AI, I was working on these algorithms back in 1978. And I had created a methodology to look at the sleep patterns. And we also had the data when the babies would stop breathing. And could we associate this pattern with this pattern? Okay, like my grandmother would look at the face and associate with the disease. So I ended up writing the code for that. In fact, published that before I came to MIT in a scientific paper, which I got to present in Finland. But while I was working at that place, because I proved myself, I was given another interesting opportunity. Some of you, if you're over the age of 40, will remember that the way that organizations ran, like this hospital or this office, was the inter-office mail system, a system. The secretary, by the way, every office, so if you're a woman on this call today, in 1978, women only could do 4 jobs: housewife, teacher, secretary, or nurse, right? Women's roles were very, very limited. In this hospital, every office had a woman who was a secretary. And as a secretary, the woman on her desktop, physical desktop, had the inbox, the outbox, paper clip. She would write something called a memo. Okay, so that's her desktop. She had folders, right? She had paper clips to do attachments, all right? And this was a memo. The memo had a very particular structure. To, from, CC meant literally carbon paper. So if I was writing a letter to the principal from this woman, I could CC it to my boss, right? BCC it, blind carbon copy. And all of this was typed up, physical paper. And this would get put into an envelope and sent around into these pneumatic tubes, all right? This was the inter-office mail system. Inbox, outbox, folders, memo, the entire system. Everyone understand what I'm saying? And this is how people communicated.